Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next session of the day. My name is Christian Kunkel. I work with Nursery Gamers, and I am the Director of University Partnerships. And we'll get into kind of what that means. I'll share a lot about kind of how our team at Nursery Gamers is helping to build the future infrastructure of esports, as well as the opportunities for amateur gamers to compete in a minute. But I'm excited to be here. Definitely happy to share kind of our approach and what we do, especially with university partnerships, which is the area that I focus on the most. So with that, I'll share my screen here. All right. So where I'm going to kind of start is a bit of the about us. So you have a context of how we see our role in the industry and the opportunities that we're pursuing and supporting as well. So Nursery Gamers is an esports infrastructure company at its core, and what that generally means to us is three different areas that we focus on very, very heavily. One is facilities, another is events, and the third is content. So the way we do each of those, I'll touch on each of them. The facilities side is those physical locations, those LAN centers that provide in-person opportunities for gaming. We have currently 5 facilities open across the country in the United States. We are based in Philadelphia, but we have facilities in Denver, in Austin, Texas, St. Louis, and we're opening another in LA. We will have 10 more facilities by the end of the year, so we're growing very, very rapidly. And the reason why we are trying to grow in this way is because the current pipelines for participants are not all that well developed at the amateur levels. You don't have the same level of coaching and guidance and infrastructure that you see in other sports. So what we'd like to be able to help make happen is more physical locations where teams can come together, where players can come to a space, get coaching, join a team, learn, improve, and work their way to whatever goals they have in the industry. We have different size facilities that we do this with, and each is kind of targeted to a different market and approach. We have small facilities that we are partnered with a retailer called Five Below. They're one of our investors, and those facilities are typically about 20 to 40 PCs. They might be 300 to 500 square meters in size. And those are facilities that are really well suited to host local teams. So a local high school or college team may come and practice and train there. Small events can occur. There's usually a small stage with a little bit of production capability, so we can stream out of those spaces, but they're more about local access and local events. The larger tier on the far other end of the spectrum is our large regional hub facilities, which are 2,000 square meters in size, roughly. Those facilities are built so that we draw lots of people in from very far away. So these are still targeted to amateurs, but they're more about having a large number of events simultaneously. So we have, say, roughly 120 PCs. We have a stage with a few hundred seats for spectators. We have a console area. We have food and beverage on site, full production studios, lounges. You can really, spend all day at these facilities, and we can be hosting multiple events simultaneously. So you might have a high school invitational, a college team practicing, and then an open invite free play event all in the same building. Those kinds of facilities are going to be built in large metro areas mostly. Because of the density of population, and they draw from all over, while the smaller facilities are kind of the spoke of the hub and spoke model that drive more local access in, and then they roll up to our largest events at the big regional facilities. In between there, we also have our mid-tier facilities, which are often aligned with key partners like a university or a pro esports team. What we do there is the same kind of operating model where we're having events on a daily basis, same as our large facilities. But what we do is we scale the location based on the region. Oftentimes they'll be in smaller or less densely populated areas, but there's a strong following at the college or university for gamers, both on their competitive team as well as their social or the casual gamers. So we build these facilities, might be in the, say, 1,000 square meter to 1,500 square meter range. Those facilities are, we run them, we program them on a daily basis, but what they also allow schools to do is to use them as a learning center. And this is where the academic integrations become really fascinating. If you have a production studio and hundreds of events happening on a daily, on a yearly basis, that provides opportunities for students to learn how to get into the industry and gain real world experience by running the events, by creating content, streaming the events, operating the space. We do internships and work studies and we heavily rely on students to help us run these kinds of facilities. So that kind of mid-tier is very much an integration with the schools, and we try to make the academic opportunities strong in addition to the competitive opportunities for their team. So the school will typically have their competitive team, whether it's varsity or a club team, which is the way that they're structured in the US, operating. So they'll play and train out of our facility. We'll also use our facility to host their intramurals for the general student body, free play just on a daily basis, and it's open to the public. And then also local high school teams and younger competitors can come in and train and practice there as well. So there's this multi-age approach, especially in a college setting, that we can support in addition to the academic outcomes. So that's facilities. The event side, I've mentioned a lot about the types of events that we do, but at our core, all of our facilities are powered by a highly engaged community that's participating on a daily basis. And that means you have to provide lots of different events and ways to come together. So the standard ways that we do that include things like daily and weekly play tournaments. So you might have on Wednesday night is your Smash Brothers night, and that's the night that the Smash community comes out and they're always there together on a weekly basis. We do that with a lot of different titles. We're very game agnostic, so we play all the games, and we work very closely with a lot of the publishers because we're a strong support of their amateur scene and their fan base. We also then run camps, for example, so summer camps for young aspiring players. We run larger events periodically that are for more invitational style. These might be multi-day events over the weekends. We run coaching clinics to help coaches who want to get into the space. There's lots of ways. We run birthday parties. There's all kinds of other things that can happen once you have a facility up and operational, and we fill that on a as regular a basis as possible. Also on the event side, we have a large event production team that we work with third parties to execute these events. So what that looks like is different for every event, but large, so depending on who the partner is, but from local high schools to colleges that want to put on their own events, they need both equipment, operational expertise, sometimes streaming capabilities, and we can come in and kind of help them do that as an operator for a fee. So we do that as well. We do that actually all the way up to the professional levels. We're a partner with Riot right now for their Valorant Champions Tour. We are the production and the event operating partner there. So we work very closely at really all levels up to the pros. But our goal is to really kind of increase access to the industry, lower barriers to entry, and provide more pathways for younger competitors to get into the scene. The final category is the content side. And this is another major effort for us. We produce a lot of content. We have a really experienced and a great in-house content creation team that is for both our own events. We produce a lot of content for our own championships. We have a number of TV shows that we produce that we put on Twitch. We do custom videos as well, and we do white label in content. So Similar to the events, we can be hired out and come in and work with other partners to help them kind of execute on their event vision with us as that enabling partner because of our depth of experience having run our own events. So those are the three main categories that we kind of think about in terms of our business and how we focus. Each of those, again, we see as a way to increase the total access and the way that the industry can provide opportunities for more players. So I'll dig into to each of them more. Each local host is meant to be a very strong community hub. 250 plus events a year and over 40,000 competitors, lots of 40 plus live streams. Our average customer spends about 4 hours in our facility per visit, which is a really, really long time for any retail business, and something we're very proud of because they really do feel like they're part of a community and they want to be part of it when they're there on a weekly basis or there for their game. They stick and they know people and it's very relationship driven. So on the ground, our teams that kind of operate these facilities and run the events are amazing, both at their job as well as building relationships with all of these competitors, and it makes people want to come back. It really does have that community feel. This is a map of kind of where our facilities are at the moment. We're kind of spread out all over. We have a number of partner facilities that we also work with that we provide access through our core membership that members can come and compete at our facility as well as some of our other partner facilities. So we're continuing to expand this map and looking all over the country to put down more roots and more communities. But really what we found so far is that everywhere we go, there's a strong following, and there's a lot of demand and a lot of interest really in every region. So we'll continue to expand and planning to do that very, very rapidly. This is a little bit into what we think about in terms of, I mentioned the pipelines of young competitive players working their way up through the ranks. What we ultimately would love to see and are working hard to achieve is that, as pro players or as amateur players aspire to be pros and become pros, right now their only options really to compete often are online, or if they happen to have a local team that they'd be lucky in many cases to have something close enough. What we're trying to build is that infrastructure where they can come to localhost and that is their pathway to the pros. That's the place where they first play together and gather and get that coaching and start to kind of step up their game. These are some examples of current pros that have played in our events. So if over time, one of the success metrics that we will look at is how many pros grew up on the Nursery platform, how many pros went to localhost and played in tournaments when they were kids or when they were just getting their start. And this is some of them that are at the top of their game that kind of have come up through our events. And we're really proud of the fact that they got their start with us and or definitely competed with us at some point and kind of on their journey to the top of the ranks. So I'll dig in a little bit on the university. I mentioned it on our facility side a little bit, but the way we think about the university pillars, and this is, especially when you have these academic alignments and competitive teams all happening in the same kind of a space, there's really three ways that we think about it. And the university community is built around these three pillars of athletics, community, and academics. The athletics side is a traditional athletics model for the US market where these colleges and universities have competitive teams in many, many sports. Esports is a new one that many are adding to their list. So sometimes it's similar to a basketball, baseball, football. They will create a varsity team, hire a coach, and run it like a traditional sport under the athletic department. Right now, this is more of a US specific context, but the NCAA, who oversees collegiate athletics, is not involved in esports and has specifically said they won't be. So schools don't have to put it under the athletic program, even though they treat it that way. Sometimes they put it under different departments. But I'm still kind of referring to that structure of the athletic department or athletic competition, where you have a formal team, relatively small, often on the order of 10 to 30 players, depending on the number of titles and games they play, and a coach. And it's very much structured and oriented around high-end competition. those kinds of integrations or those opportunities, those teams use our facilities for training. So they're there on a daily basis practicing. And then when they have matches, either online or in person, they use our facilities to compete. That's a necessary piece of the puzzle. Many schools are building small little rooms or private facilities for their teams, which is a good starting point, but they need more space if they want to get into the community and the academic side. So this is where we kind of come in and hopefully help them to establish a larger vision and a bigger model where they can see that it's not just one team on site, but it's much bigger than that. That next circle out is the academic, is the community side, which includes things like intramurals. So the larger student body, many students love these games, but don't want to compete at the highest level, or they didn't necessarily qualify for that varsity team. They often will play in intramural or more social leagues that are still competitive, but not at the same level. And they're not traveling to play other schools necessarily. They're just playing within their school. We'll run those kinds of leagues in our facility. And then beyond that, we have, and we always integrate into the local high school community, where in most cases there's local high schools near these facilities that want to compete and train. They don't have a facility or the computers in their school to be able to support certain games or to do it at a high level with a really high-end network connection. So they come to us. And the colleges love that because it's young students who might be future students for them coming on campus and training and practicing and being there. So that is a big part of that community. The events and the programming that I already mentioned go into that as well. But being very intentional about connecting to existing esports teams as well as other esports operators. So one of the things that we always make sure that we do is, when we come into a new location, we launch a new local host, the local community is really central to it. And as I mentioned before, these communities already exist and they're everywhere. So we're not coming in and creating these communities from scratch. We are, giving them a place to gather and to compete on really high-end equipment in a really welcoming space. So we like to connect in with those existing operators, the ones that already run really successful events, and give them that space to bring their community in. And we can do that without having to replicate what they already do. They use our spaces as their new gathering point. Then the final is the academics. This is where I think for a lot of colleges and universities, this is where they see a huge amount of growth potential. Is they're building programs for students to gain hands-on experience in the industry, and hopefully get jobs in the industry. So as a rapidly growing opportunity, esports presents a lot of excitement for kids, or it's obviously built on the back of an industry that they love, because just gaming as a whole. And for many students, the competitive aspect is really interesting and enticing. We often find that students and competitors come to us because of the games. They love the specific title, or they love a specific community. But then what they realize is that as they're participating, either they're not as interested in the competitive side, or maybe they don't want to commit the hours necessary to raise to that next level, but they're really fascinated and interested in the overall industry. And they want to focus either on the video production, whether that's on camera or behind camera. They want to focus on the event production and management. All of that, they want to basically work in the industry, and to get experience doing that, we can absolutely provide that opportunity. And those kinds of hands-on experiences, combined with the way the universities are defining curriculum and majors, minors, areas of study and focus, is a really great way to attract more students, especially those that are interested in this growing industry. So schools are coming to us when we talk about facilities. It unlocks all three of these if it's done at a proper scale, at a large enough scale that, and then operated in a way that is very inclusive. So those are the three areas that we really heavily focus on, and we think are driving a lot of value for schools. I touched on a lot of this. This is the kind of the different areas of recruiting and curriculum, team facilities, student access. Some of the pictures here are with one of the partner institutions we work with called Rowan University in New Jersey. They're a school that is kind of near our headquarters. We're based in Philadelphia, but we are, near Rowan, just about 20 minutes away, and we're building a facility with them so that they can integrate their communications department and their broadcast journalism school, can get esports experience, and then, in the team is headquartered there as well. So I'll run, I mentioned a lot of things about our facilities. What I'll do is I want to run through a few visuals so you can see kind of what they look like, the look and feel that we're going for. These are designed by our architect partner, which is Populous. They are a global architect. They are very much the top of the game in the sports architecture world. Highly recommend you take a look at their work if you don't know them already. They've designed many Olympic stadiums, including the London Olympic Stadium. They designed, I think, 6 or 7 NFL stadiums in the US, and Major League Baseball stadiums. They designed Yankee Stadium. And recently, in the last few years, they've started to focus heavily on esports. They've built an entire practice around esports architecture, which is an amazing effort and an amazing group to be able to focus on it. They have designed the Esports Stadium Arlington in Texas, which is the largest esports stadium in the US. And then also the Fusion Arena, which is being built here in Philly, where we're at, for the Overwatch League's Philadelphia Fusion. That is the Overwatch League stadium, or the Fusion Arena is a $50 million theater specifically targeted and designed for esports, with an amazing integrated technical experience and spectator experience, a few thousand seats, to be able to see esports in all its grandeur. And that's, again, targeted to the pro level, so not the same as what we build. We build much more of an open access, local play, amateur focused facility. Still very high end experience and operations, but certainly not at the level of investment that the Fusion Arena is going into. So this is the outside. This is the inside now of our upcoming Los Angeles facility. What you see here, and the way we think about our spaces, is we like them to be big, open, clear span, lighted, not these dark, kind of cave-ish spaces that many LAN centers often are. We also like those, but in terms of a spectator experience and the player experience, we like to have a lot of energy shared between different zones and areas of our facility. What you see here are things like streaming booths on the left. On the right, we have retail integration, so that, that partners that are sponsors or endemic to the industry that want to have access to the gamer market can put their products on display. We have a lounge here where people can hang out. In the back, you see a console area where console games are played, and you have kind of this multi-use area throughout. This is a rendering of our PC pit. These are really high-end gaming rigs that are just at the top of the game and give you the best possible experience. We have usually upwards of 100 or so in any of our large facilities, depending on the spacing. But as you can see, there's kind of like, lined up rows where teams can gather and join so that they can communicate together. And we can have a lot of matches and a lot of players going simultaneously. This is a view from the PC pit back to the stage. So we have a full stage with a few hundred seats there. Those flat floors can be turned over from spectator seating to more PCs where needed. It's a kind of that flexible style. But again, as you see, like open connections between the zones of spectators and competitors, even when they're in the pit versus on stage. And then in the middle there is kind of the food, the grab and go area where you can get some snacks and drinks and kind of be part of that kind of overall experience throughout the day. In each of our facilities, we also have private training rooms, which are opportunities for teams to rent, to kind of give themselves private space. They can certainly just rent in our PC pit as well, but these are more dedicated and kind of protected. They give you the ability to watch VODs and to do debriefs after practices. Sometimes our facilities, if it's with a college, they want to be private in the way that they dedicate to their teams, and they want to have multiple team rooms and showers and training areas and even weight rooms, we can build all that in. So that's something that we do custom on a case-by-case basis, but there can be private dedicated areas or private rooms that are available, just through reservation. So we do kind of all of that based on the needs of that area, but this is an example of one of the private training rooms. This is a view of kind of our front desk in our Rowan location. As you can see, behind it is the streaming booths and the console lounge. What you can't see on the left is the PC pit and the stage, but this is kind of your entryway and your welcoming into the space. This is where you can kind of register for an event that is happening or upcoming, where you log in and buy your hours. You can get your food and beverage or refreshments here. This is kind of like the central coordinating point of the entire facility, and gives you a place to kind of connect with our team on the ground too. And then here's an example of a small stage that we've done. This is with Rowan University. As you can see, the players are lined up front, but the spectators can see the screens in the middle. And we have a few, about 150 seats in this kind of setup. But again, can be expanded based on the needs of the current environment. And this is the kind of facility that a lot of schools are looking for. This is something that is very exciting to be able to increase those opportunities, and we're building lots of them. On the event side, I mentioned a lot of this already, the community engagement, the membership, we target a whole range of gamers, both from the casual kind of social gamer that just wants to come in and play with their friends, all the way up to highly competitive that are trying to get to the LCS or other pro leagues, and everything in between. So we kind of tailor and cater all of our approach to be able to support a wide range. And then in terms of the professional services, it's not just the equipment and the facilities, but it's the actual production and operations. That's something that we do with a lot of care, and very regularly we're putting on a lot of content and a lot of events throughout the course of the year that really I think demonstrate our connection to the industry or to the community, and I think have been really well received. We're really proud of our ability to kind of bring these events to the world. Just some shots of our event team and what we've done, both in person and online broadcasts as well. And on the content side, again, we kind of do a little bit of everything, both for ourselves and for third parties. So these are some of the broadcasts that we do. We make custom content and program shows. And, we do kind of a wide range. Some of them are game-based, others are event-based. So. All right. So I will kind of just pause there for a second. I ran through a lot about kind of how we think about the world of esports, how we think about the growth and our role in that. What I would love to do, first of all, if anybody has questions or thoughts, I'm more than willing to kind of answer them. Definitely drop them into the chat. We can kind of go a lot of different directions here. But even if we don't get anything answered, or if your question doesn't get answered today, feel free to reach out to me. My email is here on the screen. It's ckunkel@nerdstgamers.com. And kind of what feel free to reach out. Let me know what you're thinking. We are, again, actively expanding. We're hiring in all departments, and we're building facilities all across the country. So we're looking at lots of opportunities. Obviously, we don't yet have a presence in Africa. So, what I'm really interested in also is, as we continue to grow, how do we add in other regions around the world to kind of our growth plan? We're not there yet, but that doesn't mean we can't be there. So, as you're thinking about the overall ecosystem and how we support it, the physical locations and where people want to come together and play is going to be a key part of the strategy, certainly in Africa, just as much as it is in the US. So if there's a way that we can help you do that, I'd be happy to talk to you, and would love to kind of lend thoughts and guidance if possible. So let me stop sharing my screen here for a second. And then, and I would love to, again, jump into the chat. So feel free to drop any questions, thoughts you have, wherever you want me to dig in. Happy to talk about it. So as I'm kind of, feel free to continue to, if there's any questions, drop it in. But if one thing I can kind of talk a little bit about is the development of the amateur scene. This is something that I think is particularly fascinating and relevant in in our current day and age, and where the scene is going. The obviously esports has been well developed globally in many countries well before the United States. So we're not, and by any stretch, leading the charge in terms of the number of pro teams or amateur teams even. But we are kind of building on the backs of a lot of what has been proven and shown in other countries. So one thing that we are seeing, the original kind of land center communities that were developed, often in Korea, in Japan, in China, that have been really, really successful. Small little land centers were great proof points of the desire for people to come and play together. I think the opportunities here that we've learned from that is that, yes, we're in a unique situation in the U.S. because of some of the disposable income available, but the opportunity to be more structured around events is something that I think is really important, because it's just because you have an esports facility does not mean that the community thrives. What you really need to do is be very thoughtful about the programming and the events that you run. One, to be in tune with the reality of kind of the community on the ground, knowing what games they play and why they play them and how they play them, and to make sure that you're authentic about it. So the event operations is super, super key here. And I think what we've learned from seeing many other countries as they journeyed from the land centers all the way up to the highly advanced pro leagues, is that if you don't have the opportunities for players at the younger ages to join intentional, organized teams, then the rest of the industry is lacking in the feeder system of these top players. So it's really hard for a young player who doesn't have access to a team and coaching to become a pro on your own by yourself at home. It's far more effective if you can provide that coaching and structure, which is where I think the industry absolutely is going from the pro levels. But also, I think from an infrastructure standpoint, what's needed to do that is more locations where people can actually come together and play. So I think this is also one of the questions that was dropped was, how is this relevant to the needs in Africa? Obviously, I want to kind of make that connection, where we need to have those physical locations. I think, what would definitely help young players is to be able to come and join together, join a team. And that takes both the actual PCs and the internet connections to do it in a way that they can compete on an even playing field with others around the world. One of the benefits we have in esports is that you don't have to physically be there to compete with others. So you can get competition at a really high level if you have a good, if you just have access to the internet. But that said, there are benefits to being face-to-face and in person and working together, both in terms of communication, leadership, and the skill development that you are hopefully working towards, both in your game and then more widely in your life. So that is something that I think the more physical locations that are possible and that are present, the better the entire esports ecosystem will become. That doesn't mean that if you just build them automatically, those communities arise, but what we absolutely do want to see, and we think with proper cultivation and connections to the ground, these kinds of events can kind of replicate on themselves. And the more that you organize, the more it draws people in, again, who are already playing and very interested in these games, but maybe haven't done it in a competitive environment yet. Maybe they're only doing it socially, but they would love to come together and play it more competitively. If you provide that opportunity, we found that lots of people want to take advantage of it and really enjoy that kind of a community. So any other questions, thoughts? What else can we talk about, if anything? Again, happy to kind of go any direction on the collegiate or high school scenes, how we help younger players on the facility side, or events or production as well. All of those are key components to kind of what we do and what we see as a need in the growth of the entire ecosystem. So if there's anything I can do to help on that, certainly drop the question and let me know. So maybe kind of another area that I can touch on briefly is what I think is an opportunity for esports to, what I'm proposing around building out more infrastructure is not always an easy sell. And one of the things that I think has landed really well, especially with people who are skeptical in the overall value of competitive gaming. I think there's multiple levels to this conversation. One is, other traditional sports, even though, other traditional sports claim that there's value in the teamwork and communication and leadership that occurs when you bring people together to compete. The same occurs in esports. So you absolutely can make that argument. But even for those that are still hesitant because the infrastructure is not immediately obvious to them, the value of competitive gaming, one thing that we have found that is really a strong argument in your favor is that these gaming centers at their core are technology hubs. And so they have high-end PCs that absolutely can be used in gaming, but certainly can be used well outside of that for any other use as well. So we often find people coming in the door for the games, but then staying because we have access to really high-end PCs, and that can lead to things like video production, computer programming, game design, and other fields that are not exact. They're not esports, but they're tangential and they're related to esports. Most web developers and programmers that I know got their start because of their love of video games. So this is something where we can use video games as a hook to bring in more technology education. And again, more access to these, high-end equipment that can be really beneficial in a lot of areas. We see a lot of interest from community centers and other areas that would like to use gaming as a way to draw in students, increase engagement, and then they can provide additional programming and other opportunities on top of that. That's often a way that we find that framing it works really well, especially for people that maybe don't see or already buy into the inherent value of kind of self-improvement through gaming or through any other competitive pursuit. So that might be another piece that you kind of do emphasize and think about, is that the technology aspect of how do we use this as a to open up other opportunities. Esports is a hook. It is one of the most intrinsically motivating things, especially to the young audiences. We like to see a lot of players coming in, again, for the games, but then there's lots of opportunities to learn about all kinds of parts of the industry, as well as other areas of technology, just because of that love of games. So we see this as kind of a jumping off point and an opportunity to engage a larger audience in a lot of really important topics. All right. So I think that's about it at this point, unless there's other questions that you want to drop in. I really appreciated the opportunity to share. Thank you so much for having me. Again, feel free to reach out. Happy to talk to anyone that has questions or thoughts or a plan that they want to run by us. If you're trying to bring more resources to the industry and to your region, absolutely would love to talk to you, and hopefully continue to build the community and build the industry together. Thank you again, and have a great night.